There we go. Good morning, everybody. As I've already said to those that joined before, please put your videos on so we can see your lovely faces. Otherwise, Ami, myself and Claire feel like we're just talking to blank screens. Keep muted until you want to speak. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Barbara Kolosinska, Managing Director from C&M Travel Recruitment. We are the leading travel recruitment agency within the sector. We are 26 years old today, tomorrow? Yeah, 26 years old this week, and we cover all levels, all sectors, all disciplines within the travel industry. And for those of you that do work with us, thank you very much for your continued loyalty. We also have Ilaria from TTG. She is news editor. She will be covering the subject that we are talking about today. It dovetails perfectly with TTG's smarter, better, fairer values, as well as the article that they printed last year. And this is kind of why it's triggered us to talk about this today. And I've also got a couple of guests who were quoted, as Ashley and Lindsay, in the piece last year. And I know it did trigger quite a lot of comment and narrative, which is why we want to talk about it. We're going to be monitoring the Q&A, so please feel free to make comments in the chat or just put your hands up. There's not many of us here, so we want it to be as interactive as possible. One thing I do want to really stress is this is not a preaching subject. This is not a preaching session. Some of us drink, some of us don't drink. I'm sure we will tap into our own personal experiences, but what we really want to talk about is the ramifications, the perceptions, basically the travel industry and alcohol. Before, we've always talked about on our webinars really specific things such as remuneration, which is the last one, and there's a lot of legislation involved. So this is extremely emotive, subjective, and it's more of an open discussion point rather than bullet points and death by PowerPoint. So I want as much involvement. It's up to you guys. It will be recorded, it will be sent out, and it will be out on all social media. Before I continue, I'm joined by my very good friends and panelists, the A from the ABC and the C from the ABC, Ami and Claire, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Let's start with A.
A first.
Okay, my name is Ami Naru. I'm a partner at Travlaw. We are a niche law firm that just acts for the travel industry. My role is to help employers navigate all host of problems and the various pieces of legislation that keep trickling through in relation to employment law.
Thank you, Ami. Over to Claire.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Claire Steiner. A lot of you know me maybe for the work I do with Future You and the Global Travel and Tourism Partnership around young talent, but actually my day job is that of an HR professional, which I've been doing for about 30 plus years, predominantly in the travel industry, working with lots of clients across all sectors. And for me, I think one thing I want to add with Basha is I am a, those who know me know that I'm a drinker and I enjoy a tipple. But for me, I think it's about the changing attitudes. And also, one thing I know we will be covering is the legal ramifications. Actually, there's a lot of case law out there and case studies. And from my personal perspective, when Christmas comes around, most HR people I know go, oh God, here we go again, the Christmas party. So I think hopefully we'll be covering that as well.
Absolutely. I think we've got three, thank you, ladies. I think we've got three areas here. So our own personal opinion to it, as employees and employers, and I'm all three here. So we've got lots of different opinions to talk about. So today is talking about the ABC of all things booze related within the travel industry. We've got a pretty good turnout considering the amount of people that registered, which actually shows the importance and how people do feel that it's something to be talked about. The subjects that we want to cover today are the pressure of events seasons coming up soon, the legal ramifications and the pitfalls of alcohol in the workplace, how to deal with employees suffering from alcohol-related issues. And as I said, it's an open floor, so please just ask as many questions or would like to make your points. I keep stressing this is not a preaching session, okay, because we all have different opinions and we're all in different situations. We have some polls, apart from me being a poll, we have a poll which we'd just like to launch just to get your general opinion. Let me launch the first one. The first one being, do you think there is still pressure to drink in the travel industry? Can you see that, guys? Yeah? Okay. Some no's, which is good. Okay. Okay. 88%. Not really a surprise, is it? Let's kick off, shall we? Is it just our industry or is it all industries? Now, I will give you my story, and I was a big drinker. I'm not an alcoholic, very lucky, but I was in the, I started in the travel industry in the 90s. My first travel industry event, I was a little rep working for Holiday Autos, and I did feel pressure to drink. And I just think that in the 90s was just the going thing, and you just did it because you might have needed a little bit of confidence and so on. And I still see it a lot, be it at a conference, a travel industry black tie event, and so on. So I would really like to put that out to the floor. However, I'm now teetotal. I don't use the word sober. I use the word teetotal because it was my decision, and I have been for 6 years. And I know there's another lovely lady in the audience who is. So, and that was a health reason. And however, I don't preach. I don't want people drunk around me. But what I do see a lot that goes on now when I'm the non-drinking one, maybe one or two at an industry event, of what goes on. So let's put the result of that poll out to you guys. Let's go to Ami and Claire, and then we can put it out to our wonderful audience. Surprising number?
Yeah, I thought actually it would be slightly less, because I do think attitudes are changing, and I certainly see it with the younger crowd that are coming through, and there's definitely less issues around that whole being seen to conform. And I think part of that's to do potentially with the fact that we just the generational differences. However, I am of that generation where we, I mean, when I worked in London, it was Friday, we stopped at a Friday lunchtime because we all went to the pub, and that was it. You weren't going to start again. And that kind of stays with you.
Business lunches were related.
And I see that now. I think business lunches, I rarely see people order a bottle of wine at a business lunch. People tend to keep it that way. I mean, it still happens, but I see it less and less. I think the challenge we have, I think it's just the gregariousness of our industry, if that, you know what I mean? And it's just that whole, right, we're all going to have a really good time. And I think a lot of people associate having a good time with having a drink. And I think that's where maybe the attitudes need to change slightly.
Yeah, I mean, those results don't come as a surprise to me. Having worked in other industries, the travel industry is very unique. We have more events, more award ceremonies than any other industry that I've ever known. But also the people that work with the industry are nice, social people. They want to have a good time, because that goes hand in hand with the whole fact why we're in this industry, is to send people on nice holidays and nice trips to have a good time. And I think that's always going to be there. But I think, picking up on the point that Claire's made, there is a generational difference. And Generation Z, I would say, and onwards probably, are less inclined to feel under pressure to drink in the workplace, whereas before it was, work's putting on a free bar, let's absolutely share.
And it's quite interesting, is it? I've spoken to a few of my friends. I actually have some friends outside of the travel industry that work in other sectors, media, for example, hairdressing, fitness. And it's not just the travel industry it's that alcohol sort of culture. It is other sectors, but exactly like you've both said, we do so many more events. We go away to wonderful places, and it's almost like, yay, like I can't think of what the phrase is, but that's it. Now, while the cat's away, I'm going to go crazy, and we've all done it. Just going onto something that you just said there, Amy, I've got some stats here. I don't want to bamboozle everybody with stats. Owen, my marketing manager, who's there on the screen, has come up with some really interesting alcohol-related stats. Younger generations are drinking less. Okay, these are the NHS stats for 2021. 38% of 16 to 24-year-olds don't drink alcohol as well. It's 38% compared to 19% 10 years previously. 21% of 25 to 34-year-olds in England don't drink alcohol compared to 16%. So it's definitely a generational issue, and not as many younger people are drinking. TTG's article last year showed 57% of travel professionals said the travel industry should reassess its relationship with alcohol. 37% disagreed. Absolutely fair enough. I'm going to go back to that stat in a minute. I'm just going to bamboozle you with more stats, and then we can stop talking percentages. Total jobs, which is a job board, as you know, not just travel, but all sectors. More than 1 in 3 UK workers see drinking with colleagues as outdated. 45% of workers say that alcohol-based rewards at work were unprofessional. We've all done it. When I used to have an office, we used to have beer o'clock, get people a bottle of champagne when they make their first placement, let's meet for drinks receptions and so on. Almost 1 in 4 workers have felt pressure to drink at work events with colleagues. Be interesting just to get our hands up to have we felt pressure before? When we used to drink?
Cameras on, like,
say again?
It'd be helpful if people put their cameras on, I think.
Yeah, put your cameras on, guys. We can see your faces. I haven't felt pressure. No. Do you know what? When I used to drink, and Lindsay might be good for Lindsay and Ashley to come in here. When I used to drink, and say I didn't want to have a drink, but everybody be like, yeah, have a drink. That's pressure. It's not peer pressure, feeling that you have to, but it's almost that if you're not drinking, there's something wrong with you. Just some more stats. 63% of workers want more non-alcoholic options at work events. And I know that at the TTG Awards last year, they did have a lot of options for not just water, which is wonderful. And the last stat, 42% of UK workers said they'd be more likely to reject a job at a workplace if they sensed it had a heavy drinking culture. I'm happy to Ilaria, I'll send you those stats as well so you can put them into the piece, but just some interesting stats there. So would anybody like to join in this conversation about the pressure at a work event? Maybe Lindsay or Ashley or anybody else, Chris or anybody. Would you like to? Hi Sarah, by the way, I didn't know you were joining us. Hiya. Would anyone like to contribute to this rather than us talking? Come in, Lindsay.
From a supplier point of view, we turn up to the opening of an envelope. Holiday Extras are well known in the industry for... I was
going to say, introduce yourself, because some people might not know who you are.
I'm Lindsay Garvey-Jones, National Retail Manager of Holiday Extras. I've been in the industry for 38 years this year, and I've been with Holiday Extras for 13. I would say that the drinking culture, you're right. I think the younger you are, the less inclined, and that's had a switch around, because when I first started in travel, it was all about the booze. It was, your Club 1830 nights, everybody had a great time. And I think that culture has changed because, there are more people taking the choice not to drink, that we're all very aware of health and well-being, etc. But also we're all very aware of perhaps our own personal brand when we're representing a company, when we're at, at a different event, whether that be an awards or a conference. But let me tell you something for free. When I'm away at conference, it is a license almost for whoever attends conference for them to go wild in the aisles 4 days, because they're away from home, they're away from children. It's a chance to relax, be with their comrades and their friends, and just have a really good time, because alcohol is linked to celebration. And when we celebrate, we like to have a drink, we like to cheers. So there is a natural affinity to alcohol that way. But having been to so many events recently where the non-alcoholic beverages, sometimes you've got to seek them out. And if you want a non-alcoholic beverage, but for me, I only drink water and coffee these days. When I had to purchase water or have a free
For
wine,
10 quid a bottle.
I was like, I should have brought my water bottle and filled it up in the bathroom. You know, it really makes me angry.
And Lindsay, as a teetotaler as well, I don't know who else doesn't drink in the audience, but again, it's not a preachy thing. I know that when I stopped drinking 6 years ago, I actually felt a bit embarrassed.
No.
I actually felt, oh gosh, am I still going to be invited to events? How are people going to perceive it? Most people are very supportive. There was the odd, come on, what's wrong? Come on, have a drink. So
I think other people's responses to the non-drinking.
Very interesting.
It takes a little while for things to settle down and bed in, for people to get used to you not drinking. Because I still like to have my water out of a wine glass. I'm like, don't take away the wine glass.
Yeah.
But it is that thing of, did he think I'm boring? And it does make you, I wouldn't say it makes me feel ashamed, but it made me feel awkward.
Yeah, it's not ashamed, but it's far from proud.
Like, oh, go on, have a drink. And I'm like, oh, no. So I understand it from that point of view. It's an awkward feeling, but it has taken a while to settle
Absolutely.
down.
And I think because we are both in our 50s, I'm sure you won't mind me saying that, we are confident, we're comfortable in ourselves. But I think if you're younger, those stats show that if you don't drink, you don't drink between the ages of 20 and 30, but maybe sort of mid-30s to late 30s, still easily influenced and so on, and you're not confident in your decision, it could be it could be difficult. And I totally agree with you. I was the same. It's just a bit awkward. Now you don't even think about it, do you? You don't even think about it. It's actually everybody else's issue. It's quite interesting. These last few weeks has been a few more events and things and dinners and so on, and I've just been very observant to see a lot of it is like, yay, we're still having a drink, only because I knew we were doing this.
It just builds on that point, doesn't it? We always talk about diversity, inviting everyone to the party, but you're not including everyone if you're only catering for the people that drink. So you've got to create an inclusive environment. You've got to make it non-drinkers the norm, basically, not some alien species that's treated very differently.
Absolutely. And we are a lot of companies, and the industry is really getting hot on DEI, and that we can't exclude people, and that would be excluding a significant amount of people, definitely. There's obviously issues that happen. I think you talked about when we do go on a conference, Lindsay, that people let their hair down. It's almost like going on a singles holiday, isn't it?
The eyes have seen on some of these conferences. The ears
and also what goes on and what you see. Let's not talk about it. But
what happens at conference stays at conference.
But it doesn't. That's the thing. As an employer, bang on it. You're representing a brand.
Yeah.
And even I have seen it when I've taken staff their first conference many years ago. First conference, whichever conference it is, ITT, ABTA, and so on. And they're like, whoa, first night. And they go out, they get absolutely plastered, and they peak too early. And I'm like, and you do give them a warning, you do tell them they are there to represent the company, and they've had to be not reprimanded, but told off because of it. Ami and Claire, what sort of ramifications does that have as an employer, taking our staff just to an event, not necessarily overseas, plying them with alcohol, they do something embarrassing, they do something dangerous, whatever. How does that impact us as employers?
Well, I think where do we start on this one, Claire? I think as employers, it obviously affects your reputation out there, because people talk and it's not for the right reasons. But secondly, the employee in question, before they go out on conferences, I think all employers should remind staff that these conferences, these trips, wherever they may be, are an extension of the workplace, and primarily you're there not to have a holiday, but because of work. And therefore your actions need to be professional, and that, okay, we don't expect you to not drink at all, but you've got to drink within reason, because as soon as you step over that line, it becomes a potential conduct issue. And I think you've got to I know it's not a nice message, because it's sort of
it's dictating. Yeah,
you're putting a bit of a dampener on this nice perk that they're getting because of their job, but the perk is fundamentally a workplace event. And it's the same with when you have Christmas dues, or you're throwing a party because you've blasted your targets for the year. Those workplace events, socials, are still an extension of the workplace. And the issue is that if you don't give proper guidance, and then an employee gets into a fight with another colleague, which happens a lot, and Claire can vouch for that, or people's tongues get a little bit looser, don't they? And they start coming out with stuff that is not particularly very nice, or there's insults, or there's potential discriminatory comments that are being made. So as employees, I think you've got to do your due diligence and at least convey that message before people think, well, this is just, we can do what we want in here. This is just, party time.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I'd like to think it's getting less for me in terms of the number of cases I deal with annually, but I still deal with a lot of conduct issues. I've actually had to sack people because of their behavior and what they've done. And there is the conduct, but actually there's also, for me, a duty of care that we need to look at as employers as well. And I will say, this isn't a travel company, but I've dealt one a few years ago where the member of staff actually got themselves into quite a lot of trouble after the event had finished, and got themselves into quite a dangerous situation because they had lost their ability to rationally think and make informed decisions. Luckily, they were fine, but actually it could have been really, really awful. And as Ami will attest as well, when it's a business event and you've got a staff event going on, it doesn't matter if it's happening after the event. You still have a duty of care for the safety of that person, based on the fact that you have provided them with this opportunity to have fun and have a party. So, yes, there are absolutely the health benefits, but for me, looser lips, behaviour.
Yeah. The duty of care flows, it's not just to that individual employee to make sure from a health and safety perspective about their welfare, but it's also to your other employees that might be there as well, because I'm a lawyer, legal industry like a drink. There's no two ways about that. And there are stories of partners getting sacked because they've got really drunk on the dance floor and turned around and punched one of their colleagues. True story. So it's a duty of care to the individual employee, but to your other employees as well.
For all your, I think Gemma, hang on, I'm just looking at the comments, guys. So please feel free, if you don't want to put your hand up, then please feel free to make comment here. Gemma, I'm sure I saw a comment from you. Where is it? Gemma said, I also think it could be challenging to manage the duty of care piece. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I'm Gemma. I don't know everyone on the screen, so I'm from Cosmos and Avalon.
Hello, Gemma.
Hello. Yeah, I think it's funny. We kind of focus on the piece around how are people behaving and what are they doing and how they're making the company look. But actually, I think the bigger piece is the duty of care. I think somebody that's under the influence, unfortunately, are more likely to have accidents or to get themselves in really dangerous situations. Even something as simple. If you're staying overnight and then you're going back to that room on your own, if you've had too much alcohol, there's a really good chance that you could end up
in somebody else's room,
in someone else's room, or even overdosing on the amount of alcohol that you've had. All of those sorts of things, and that's a huge challenge to try and manage as an employer, I think.
On that point, Gemma, you're absolutely correct there, because there's no specific law in the UK that says employers must make sure that their employees do not work. There's no such legislation. However, there is the health and safety legislation that you have to ensure the welfare of your employees. So it's the things like you were saying, Gemma, that if you're getting one of your employees is really, really drunk, you can't just leave them abandoned. You need to make sure that they get back to the hotel safely. There are a few jobs where it's obvious that you can't be under the influence, such as, for example, if you're driving. But other than that,
that's actually, sorry to interject. And Gemma, we didn't want to start with duty of care right at the beginning of that. We wanted to sort of give an overview and then go into more the legals. That's actually a very interesting point, Ami, because as an employer or a manager or director, you might like a drink as well. So we also have to watch the amount that we drink because you're there herding your ducklings almost. So we all have to take responsibility. So is it an industry thing? Do you think we have to change the industry perceptions, do you think? And I'll come on to Ashley in a minute to comment.
There's no point having a policy within your workplace saying, you've got zero tolerance of this, or, you're allowed to drink in moderation. If you as the employee, if you as the boss are not leading by example, because they're going to say, well, yeah, that's what your policy says, but look at Basha, for example, she was absolutely off face. So, you can't really, I know that's a bad example, but whoever the employer is.
Maybe 20 years ago, but
you have to set the example.
Absolutely.
Because if you're saying it's gross misconduct regardless of who or at what level in the business.
Yeah.
Gross misconduct.
And I think in all our employment contracts, we've all got drinking in moderation, even at events, but do we really adhere to it?
Yeah.
Lindsay's, sorry, go on.
Unlikely to be in contracts, you need a clear policy, but it's not just about drinking at events. It's the whole discrimination piece as well, isn't it? That, you were alluding to people putting other people under pressure, so go on, have a drink. Why are you not drinking? Stop being so boring. Well, we don't know why they're not drinking. They might be pregnant and trying to, not want to let people know. It might be for religious reasons. It might be because of a disability and health reasons. Or it might just be their choice.
I mean, Holly's just asked a really interesting question around our liability as an employer if an employee drives home drunk after work do.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, at the end of the day, how they get to and from their workplace, it is up to them. But if you are basically seeing someone who's drunk, you should be putting in steps to prevent them from getting in that car and driving, as you would do in any situation. Because, you're, as an employer, you have to ensure the welfare of your employees.
So do we change the cultures of our businesses? Many of our businesses were, as we've said already, revolved around alcohol. Lindsay's made a point, as a business, you don't promote alcohol for incentives for travel partners, as you probably used to, didn't you? Your credit card spend's gone significantly down because people are declining alcohol. And you've also talked about, including on this topic, there's your travel insurance, which this is really, really fair point. If you are overseas, which is a grey area of cover, or if you're sick or injured as a result of being intoxicated when overseas, that's a very fair point. I want to come on to Ashley now, if that's okay. I think we've covered, because Ashley has made a few comments. He was really involved last year. Ashley, would you like to come on screen rather than me reading out your comment? Would you like to add your observations, comments? Hello, Ashley. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Ashley Quint. I'm a director at Travel Time World. We're a travel agents, and I work with Jackie Stedman. Last year, I wrote a piece for TTG all on this subject.
Why did you write it, Ashley? What made you write it?
I saw a LinkedIn post that was completely unrelated to travel. It was somebody who said, I can't work for this company anymore because their culture was revolved around alcohol and I feel like I don't fit in. And I thought, well, actually, there are lots of elements of the travel industry where we're very guilty of that. And maybe we just don't think about giving people the choice. And I was at an event with Gary Bates, who works for ITC, who likes his red wine. And he said, well, you should write something on it. So I sent out a tweet and TTG picked up and they said, write an article. So the whole basis around the article really was to give people the choice and for it to be normal. So if you don't want to drink, that's fine. Give us another option, and don't make a big fuss about it, because people don't want to make a big fuss about it.
Which is exactly what we said
There
earlier,
were
isn't it? Don't make people feel awkward for it, which is what Lindsay said.
Yeah, exactly. And then there were other sort of connotations that came out of it, of using alcohol as incentives, as what Lindsay said, and that is still a really big thing. And it's just sent to you. You're not even asked what you want. You're just sent a bottle of champagne or something. It's not like you get given the choice in that sense. And the other part that came out of it, which was quite interesting, was using alcohol as incentives to sell. So this was sort of goes wider than an actual recruitment point, but particularly cruise lines or some all-inclusive hotels using the alcohol part as the selling point.
Yeah, so that's a really fair point. Actually, we talked about that today.
Yeah, so that was sort of an interesting connotation that came out, and the amount of messages I had, not just from people like Lindsay, you sent me a message, but people who didn't want to be named within the industry, who couldn't say things because of worrying about alienating their agents, who agreed and understood where we were coming from. And things have changed. What TTG did after I wrote that column last year and included alternative options was great.
It was fantastic. It definitely got traction, that article, and then their article, and
I've just come back from the River Cruise conference. Well, I didn't go to the River Cruise conference, but I did the pre-conference, and APT took on board what I said. So the drinks menu, which was free, the drinks menu, half of it was alcoholic and half of it was non-alcoholic, and a full range from cocktails to beer to wine to fruit juice. Anything you wanted was included on the menu. So it didn't become a real big thing. And I've just come back from a fam trip in America, and out of 8 of us, 3 of us didn't drink at all. So it is a lot bigger than what people necessarily think it is. And it's, people just don't say, they don't make it overt, say, oh, I don't drink. It's not a big thing. It's not like a dietary requirement.
No.
People don't, you wouldn't put that down.
Do you actually not drink, Ashley? I don't know. Do you not drink?
No, I haven't done for a long time. No.
Okay, so
no.
It seems to be other people's kind of
problem.
It's not even, it's just like thing, and it's just not a thing. So obviously they might.
I think I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. I think it is changing, and I think that's why I was surprised to see it was not. And I'm seeing it. I mean, I'm probably one of the oldest people on here, if not the oldest person on here. And, you know, I mean, I remember the 80s and I remember what it was like. I'm seeing a definite change, but all of these open conversations are helping it, making people much more aware. Absolutely right. It's about the narrative, Lindsay. It's about, I think, you know, the people, and I think, Bash, you didn't tell anyone initially when you did it, but actually once you told people, you didn't get a, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing it. I don't think, did you?
There's one or two.
One or two.
But that was it. But then
I think it's changing. I think also these days, you know, going back to, you know, water on the table, and that was your only option. I mean, you've got no Secco now. You've got, you know, 0% alcohol, which my mother swears by. You know, all these things. So actually, as Lindsay was saying, you still like to have your water in a wine glass. You can still have that kind of, you know, feel like you're fitting in if you're on a mocktail or whatever it is.
Yeah,
it's a very, very interesting analogy, isn't there? Because there's no stigma between being a vegetarian and a meat eater.
Do you know what? I'm going to interject again here. So I haven't eaten meat since I was 18, 5 years. So I'm in my almost mid 50s now. And it was a similar feeling for when I told people I was going to become vegetarian. So it was the right thing to do, and I didn't want to eat animals in 1988. I think it's a similar kind of perception that you're going down the teetotal route. And there are, I think, a really good thing. Actually, the fact that TTG picked it up, your article, and we've done a lot on it, and obviously Lindsay and I talk about this all the time with both teetotal. Again, this isn't preaching, is there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are very interested in sobriety, or teetotalness, let's call it, because sobriety
just having the option where they can cut down. So as I said, I'm a drinker, but actually every night I'm definitely trying, sober curious. Yeah, I'm not necessarily sober curious. I'm very aware of the health options, and as particularly as I get older, and I'm trying not to drink as much as I do. So for me, having the no secco actually makes me psychologically think I'm still having a glass of bubbles.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'm not having water.
Yeah. And they put water in a silly little tumbler. It's like, no, put it in a nice zhuzhy wine glass with ice and lemon, and it zhuzhes it up a bit.
Yeah.
So there's two things we're really talking about here. We know the impacts alcohol have. We know the statistics are showing that the younger generation coming through, and the younger generation, we are probably the oldest on here. You're right, Lindsay, Claire. Lindsay's 2 years behind me. That they are drinking less. But we have to keep going back to the duty of care as employers, as colleagues. We've talked about things that happen at events, and people are getting to sticky wickets, getting to dangerous situations. But we'd like to put another poll on here. I don't know if you're an employee, but know this has happened, could you please answer this? The next poll is, have you ever had to discipline, or has anyone been ever disciplined after drinking too much at an industry event or work event? So I'm just going to share the results from the last one. So disciplining. Is that on? Can you see that?
No, you've got.
Oh.
There you go. I've done it.
Oh, damn. Sorry, guys. Let me go back into it. Right. Is it in there? Can you see it? Yeah. No. Owen, can you help me, please?
Yeah. There you go.
Can you all see it now? Please nod. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's not a surprise, is it?
Well, lucky you who haven't had to do it, is all I can say.
Or it hasn't been done within your business if it's not down to you. I'll share the results, 69%. There we go. Thank you. Is that an interesting result? Is it the industry? Would anybody else like to come and join us on the stage?
I think with alcohol, whichever industry, whichever environment, people's behaviours change, and because people's behaviours change, then certain things happen. So I think you put alcohol in a room with lots of people who just want to have a good time, things will happen. That's just a fact of life, I think. But I think one thing that I wanted to mention about whether you have to discipline people, I think the question is it a conduct issue? So
is it a what? Sorry, issue?
Is it a conduct issue?
Conduct, yeah.
A recreational usage that's leading to some sort of behaviour, or is it a capability issue? Because is this showing underlying behaviour that might lead to someone having a problem with alcohol, in which case they need support, and they need to be set targets for improvement, and the employer needs to work with the employee rather than just say, well, you're an alcoholic, right, we're just going to get rid of you.
Absolutely. And drinking too much at an event is very different to alcoholism.
Exactly.
Very different. That's that's an addiction, and it's a disease. Very different, isn't it?
And I think it's important also to highlight that alcoholism itself is not a disability under the Equality Act, but some of the consequences of being an alcoholic that may come out could potentially be a disability under the Equality Act. So there's a bit of a grey line there, but don't just jump to conclusions and think, do you know what, this is just straight away conduct. You need to do a little bit of digging around. Most of the time it will be, because you can tell. But there are other factors as well that impact someone's performance in the workplace, which will start you to get you thinking, such as, absenteeism is increasing, productivity is reducing, all of those telltale signs.
Lindsay's mentioned, I don't know if you can all see the comments, but I'm looking at the chat box. People coming in smelling of alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is obviously a telltale sign, and looking a bit haggard and stuff. And if there's been an event the night before, and when I overtake a few of my members of the team to an event, Yep, you can have a few drinks, but you need to be sitting at your desk when you had an office the next day. You cannot be late, and you kind of know when they've maybe had one too many. Lindsay's lucky with her team, as they now have a certain standard and expectation of conduct and behaviour because they're representing the personal brand. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the message I would echo to all employers, which is make sure you've conveyed that to your staff, because if you don't say anything, well, what ground do you have to turn around and say, well, actually you should be doing that because
you didn't tell me?
Yeah,
you didn't tell me.
Exactly.
I'm sure that, I know some people have probably been a bit quiet, but I'm sure we've all got examples, you might not want to say, when that's happened, not to ourselves, and you think, oh God, they've had too much to drink. I know I have before.
Listen, I mean, I still see it happening, and I think I'm going back to Lindsay was talking about, it being a celebration, and is quite right. And I think, our industry is what it is, and it is incredibly sociable, and we have a certain, very gregarious people within it. And time again, you see new entrants to the industry for that first time going to an event where it's a bit overwhelming. So they start taking a drink, and then it's being topped up, and they're not necessarily really, and then suddenly they just tip over, and you'll end up scraping them off the floor, getting them home. We've talked about that, and I'm guilty of having done this in the past. It's kind of like, well, you're allowed to do it just the once. We'll let everyone have that one strike, that one free pass of making an absolute idiot of yourself at a conference. Just don't do it again. And actually, it's the wrong thing, isn't it? We shouldn't be saying that anymore. We should be just saying, right at the very beginning, these are our expectations. You are here to, and Lindsay said about, personal branding. We work really hard on how we want to be perceived as professional people in the industry. Yes, when you're younger, you might get carried away, but we need to manage those expectations and get them to understand the connotations and what will happen. And I think it's just that, it's just around the conversations you have, and I use the word expectations all the time, about what you want your staff to do. And you're quite right, Lindsay, and other people here, if you get a reputation in this industry, we find out about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And you say one strike as an employer, but you have one strike and you do something externally. We've mentioned, people get into fights, and people do remember, and that does have a connotation on your professional reputation. Chris, right? Hello, Chris. Do you want to ask, or do you just want me to read it out? A really fair question. Do you want me? Oh, hello, Chris.
Hi. It was just if situations have been left unchecked in the past and a drinking culture has existed without people being pulled up on it, can you draw a line in the sand and say that may have gone on in the past, but this is how we're going to play the rules from now on?
Good question, isn't it? Because you're changing culture, aren't you? Good question.
Yeah, you are changing. I mean, if you don't put that message out, then you can't. Then people are just going to lead to examples from before. So you have to set that mark in the sand moving forwards.
One of the things, and I know that there are a couple of fellow HR professionals on here, because I like the lovely Nina. Hello, how are you? I mean, I think it's what I'm seeing in a lot of the businesses I work with is things like the Friday drink culture. The trolleys that used to come around, those aren't really around anymore. But also, these employee groups, getting groups of employees to get together and having the social groups and getting them to be very diverse, so that you get the sense of all the staff and what they want to do. And Nina, I don't know if you're doing that with you doing any of that, and you've seen a change.
Definitely, we've seen a change. Even when we have suppliers come in or we arrange informal get-togethers, the consumption of alcohol is a lot less, and a lot of people just don't join in for the drinking.
And are you finding that the staff socials are changing as well, in terms of, it used to be, all right, we're all going to go to a night at the park, aren't we? But actually...
There is no pub culture. There is no drink culture. There is no Fridays after drinks, even on payday. All that has stopped, particularly past COVID. Yeah.
I think that helps, hasn't it, a little bit? Ashley's made a fair comment here. I did giggle at it, actually. There is an element that current industry leaders in the age group more likely to drink, my age group in life, to understand the mindset. Understand the mindset of the upcoming generations and move the industry forward and make it one that fits for the future. And I think that's absolutely spot on. It's everybody understanding. It's the older maybe generation and industry leaders that are from that club, those club days, so to speak, and 80s and 90s, that are still key individual industry figures, and understanding what needs to be done. So it's a very fair point, and I'm in total agreement.
I don't think there's anything wrong in having some guidance, some policy out there to say we have a zero tolerance of people putting pressure on colleagues to drink, and if you do that, it will be treated as a conduct issue, because we've just got to make, in this industry, non-drinkers being as normal as vegetarians.
I think it's also fair to say, I think it's interesting because you know, yes, the people who are at the towards the end of their career, and who probably are a little bit more senior as a result, actually do, I think, even though they come from that drinking culture, I think we're all starting to drink a bit less. I think because there's an image, because maybe you're the boss or you're in a senior position, I don't think you see that very much. I think it's that kind of, that as you're starting that career, I think, and maybe where you're in a really front-facing, customer-facing thing, that the issue, the pressure's on.
And it is because when you go to an event, there is, there's the drinks reception, there's the champagne reception, there's this, there's that, and it's free flowing, isn't it? So that's probably why. What can be done? What should we do? It's great that the narrative is happening. It's great that we're talking about it, and everybody here is obviously interested in it or has an opinion. If anybody would like to comment or just join us, please do. Just put your hands up or unmute yourselves. There's a small enough group. Please do. But have you 2 or 3 things, Ami and Claire, and I'm putting them on the spot here, and Lindsay and Ashley and everybody. What can we do as a sector to change opinions, perceptions? So, like Ashley says, that the more established, older drinking culture leaders understand that the new ones coming through the sector don't have to drink to prove themselves and to advance in their careers.
I think we've got to make the provision of non-alcoholic drinks normal, that it happens as a matter of routine. Just as you cater for, like I keep saying about vegetarians, we just need to make it normal that you think, right, okay, there will be a certain sector of our audience that don't want to drink for whatever reason, and I don't have to explain that.
And it doesn't, and it's just not, and the fact that it's not weird not to, that's the thing, there's still this sort of stigma. Are you pregnant? Well, I can't be pregnant at 54. It's just like, are you an alcoholic? No, it's just my decision. So
we need to get rid of that stigma, and the way you get rid of the stigma is by making something normal.
Gemma's just made a good point about the event organisers. I think you're quite right, Gemma. I think it needs to be less free-flowing. I mean, you know, it's not cheap to have booze at these events. I think it was Lindsay, I think, again, who made a point about how expensive it is. And, you know, and I think, again, I think that's another part of the issue and the problem, potentially. And I know I have been guilty of this in the past, which is, right, there's a free bar for an hour, so I'm going to drink as much as I can whilst the free bar's on, so I don't have to then spend £100 after the free bar closes. But then you've drunk so much that you'll then, all your inhibitions go out and you end up spending 200 quid. Because you're like, oh, whatever, because I'm having a good time. And it's a bit like when you get on a plane, you know, you've spent 800 quid on a ticket. You're like, well, I'm going to get all the free everything I can while I'm here. So I'm going to have the champagne. I'm going to, whatever it is. And I think that's a psychological thing that certainly people my age need to get out of. I think, yes, it is changing. I think attitudes are changing. But the more you have these conversations and the more people take responsibilities and lead by example, then actually the better it will be. And we are seeing, again, a change in things like the staff socials. But Chris, you're quite right. Yeah. If I can't go out and have lots of alcohol, lots of free champagne, why would I spend 500 quid on a ticket?
So it's stigma, it's changing the stigma, the attitudes, the zero tolerance.
But
sorry, Ami.
That's the point. You can if you want to, but equally so, you don't have to.
She made the point. It's about choice. It's about giving people choice. Sorry, Ami, I interrupted.
It's the stigma element of it. I think there's a big piece of work that employers need to do about incentivising staff with bottles of champagne or cases of wine, because you're not including everyone to be incentivised if they don't drink for religious reasons, for health reasons, because they're pregnant. But I think if you want to send out a message to your staff, you need to convey that message, not after the event, but before the event. And it's not just travel conferences or travel events, it's turning up to work under the influence, it's turning up with a hangover the next day, and it's also, you know, work social events amongst your colleagues as well. You've got to have some clear guidance and policy, because you can't then turn around and say, well, you shouldn't have done that and we've got zero tolerance. And I think there's also got to be this element of, you can't put pressure on your colleagues to drink, because there will be a reason why they don't want to drink, and they don't have to explain it to you or to anybody.
Yeah. Chris, just going back to your point, event organisers will also be conscious that people won't buy tickets if booze isn't free flowing, but of course the booze goes to the venue rather than. But are there, do events, you know, all the different awards and stuff, it's not really free flowing anymore. You might get half a bottle of wine on a table, but it's not constant free flowing. Or I suppose the drinks reception is, isn't it? You can have, you know, half an hour of free drinks, but we don't really go to that many events where it's constant topping up, or is it?
You have to purchase them. I mean, we, in the past, not even with Holiday Extras, I'm going further back into my career, we were encouraged to spend an enormous amount of money on the credit card. If we weren't spending money on our credit card, the bosses wanted to know what on earth we were doing in order to shmoo whoever we were hosting that night. You know, if you hadn't spent enough, you weren't doing your job. So, you know, just to go hand in hand with that question, which is, now you get half a bottle of wine per person on your table, which is set out for you with a load of drinks, but then you've got to spend the extra to get it. And it's an extortionate amount of money, £110 for a bottle of gin. You know, you go to some of the awards at like the Grosvenor Park, you're talking £150 for a bottle of vodka. And I'm like, what is going on? When's it £150? A round of drinks is like 200 quid. It's ridiculous. I'm bringing tap water.
But I do know large groups of agents, they may be getting fewer and fewer, that do only go on tables where they know they're going to be hosted, where the champagne is going to flow and people are just going to get absolutely smashed.
You're spot on, Chris, because they'll seek a supplier out who's got a credit card.
Yeah, very true.
We can't deny that it doesn't exist just because we're trying to
change it,
promote a better way of doing it. It does exist.
Yeah,
that's a really fair point, actually. Yeah. Would you not invite, say you have a hosted table, we've got operators and suppliers here, a couple of agents, would you not invite an agent because you know all they want to do is get absolutely plastered, but they're a good agent for you? There's a question for you.
Definitely, because life's too short now, and I don't want to spend an evening with people that are actually smashed out of their brains. So, but we would have to try and reward those agents in a different way, where we know that it's an environment where it's not going to promote that sort of thing.
Like Gemma's put here, find other feel-good moments at events, spas, giveaways, rather than ploughing them in alcohol. Yeah. Great stuff. Anything else? We're almost done. Anything else to add? Would anybody else like to join us? Comment? I think we've covered everything, ladies, haven't we? Let's have a look. Legal ramifications, the pressures. We've got a couple more polls, but have you noticed a change in staff social events involving alcohol? I think we've pretty much covered that. Anyone else like to comment? One last comment, maybe from Lindsay and Ashley.
I just think keep on keeping on, because there is a culture change starting to be felt. I see it, I feel it, and it's very much welcomed, because people are choosing more now to have the choice. And that is going back to Ashley's point. It's about having the choice and normalising that, and not making people feel other. So
it's okay to drink, it's okay not to drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Just give people the choice. Just carry on doing all of this, and just stop making them feel othered. You know, that's when when everything's integrated. But you know, we're on a journey.
Ashley, thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for joining us, Ashley.
I was going to sort of add to what Chris said, really, and I think certainly from a supplier's point of view, it's about knowing your agents and knowing others in the industry and being smart about what you do with them. Certainly we've seen that with some of the operators who we work really closely with, and they have got, certainly what Lindsay said about since COVID, they've got a lot more savvy at knowing what we like, what we don't like, and will tailor things for us rather than just sending out a bottle of champagne, or know us that if we're going to an event, they'll have some non-alcoholic options regardless. So I think it's a case of knowing who your audience is and catering to them.
You're spot on, Ashley. Just a caveat on that. Taylor Swift does this really well. She knows her fans really well, and she surprises and delights them by getting to know what they like, and she sends little surprise packages to them. So when it comes to suppliers rewarding other suppliers or clients at Christmas or whatever, know them. Stop the tokenism with the champagne and the wine. Do the spa day. Do the
absolutely.
jumper, do the
Jo Malone candle. Talking of Taylor Swift, come on, those tickets are extortionate. I'm trying to.
That's why she could afford to send people presents.
Please.
I'd be interested to know if there's anyone else who are doing different things around that, you know, and have already started to make those changes around gifts and things. Particularly, maybe Nina, I don't know if you're changing what you do with staff rewards.
Yeah, we're looking at alternatives, you know, discount high street vouchers. Really, alcohol doesn't really come into it, to be honest. We've stopped that. We are looking at alternatives.
But we all used to, didn't we? We all used to take clients a bottle of wine or champagne for Christmas, la la la. So yeah, we're the same. Jo Malone candles seem to go down quite well. They seem to like those.
Yeah.
Great idea, Claire. Ami, anything to finish on?
Not really. I think we've covered it. We've had a good discussion. It's just about making non-drinkers feel normal.
Yeah. So there's two things really. It's some of us here that don't drink. Let's normalise it. As employers or HR professionals or colleagues, we obviously have to look at our duty of care and maybe even our employment contracts. And yeah, I think let's continue the narrative. I really hope everybody's enjoyed today. I enjoyed it. Very informative. Thank you for everybody that contributed, that spoke, and that gave comments on here. Always thank you to Ami and Claire, my A, my C to me being B. I really value your time, and everybody that joined us. Thank you so much. As I said, we will be recording it. It has been recorded. It will be sent to you all. It will be put on social media if anybody else wants to watch. And I think hopefully TTG, it's something good that you can write up what we've talked about today, and we can continue this important subject. And Natalie Black, you're going to see Swifty. I'm very jealous. Can I please come with you? Okay, everybody, thanks once again. We will be doing another webinar. We haven't got a date or a subject, but it'll be sometime next month or May. We'll keep you posted. Thanks again. Have a wonderful Easter. Don't drink too much, and see you all very soon. Thank you.